When you think of The Hobbit, it's easy to just file it away as a charming little kid's story, right? The prequel to the epic saga of The Lord of the Rings. But it is so much more than that. It's this deep, profound look at a battle that wages inside all of us, that cozy, warm pull of comfort versus the scary but thrilling call to adventure. It's a story that shows us that real courage, well, it isn't about how strong you are, but about the choices you make. So this is where it all starts. Not in some grand castle or a king's palace, but in a hole in the ground. And listen, this isn't just any old hole. This is Bag End. And it represents perfect, predictable, wonderful comfort. We're talking a full pantry, a warm fire, your favorite walking sticks by the door. Bilbo Baggins' life is safe, it's orderly, and it is completely, totally devoid of surprises. This is the starting line. It's the baseline against which all the courage to come is going to be measured. So before we go any further, just think about that for a second. Seriously, what would it take for you to walk away from a life of perfect safety and contentment, to go on a journey with absolutely no guarantee of success or even survival? That question right there is the beating heart of this entire story. And for Bilbo, well, the answer to that question arrives without an invitation. This is the exact moment the big, wide, noisy, chaotic world literally bursts through his perfectly round front door. And you can see the clash right here, plain as day. On one side, you've got the familiar comforts of Bilbo's home, and on the other, you have Thror's map. It's talking about a lonely mountain, a dragon named Smaug, and a legendary lost treasure. It's a physical piece of a dangerous, mythical world laid out right there on his dining room table. And then the dwarves sing. And you have to understand, this isn't just some drinking song. For Bilbo, it's like a spell. It awakens something deep down inside him, something he probably thought was gone forever. That adventurous, tookish spirit from his mother's side of the family. This is the moment the idea of adventure shifts from being a terrifying problem to an enchanting possibility. But let's be real, he doesn't just leap at the chance. Not even close. His first reaction is pure Hobbit. He's completely flustered, worrying about his dishes, his food, his whole routine. The book says he feels positively flummoxed. He is the poster child for an unwilling hero, which, honestly, just makes his transformation later on that much more incredible. Okay, so the romance of that song, it wears off pretty quick. The beautiful idea of adventure slams right into the brutal, muddy reality of the world outside the Shire. So the job description was, what, burglar? The reality was almost becoming roast mutton. In their very first real test against these 3 massive trolls, it's not the dwarfs' axes or their strength that saves them. Nope. It's Gandalf's quick thinking, mimicking the trolls' voices to keep them arguing until the sun rises and turns them to stone. And this just perfectly sets up a key theme for the whole book. Cleverness, more often than not, beats brute force. And this map, it's more than just a drawing. It's a statement. Like Gandalf says, they've crossed a line. They are over the edge of the wild now, and out here, the familiar rules just don't apply. Every single step they take from this point on is a step into the great, dangerous unknown. All right, now we get to it. This might just be the single most important chapter in all of Tolkien's work. Seriously. It starts as this simple, terrifying scene in the dark, but the ripples from this moment, they spread out and decide the fate of the entire world. And if you want proof of how important this is, just look at the publishing history. Tolkien himself went back 14 years after the book first came out and actually rewrote parts of this chapter. Why would he do that? Because the story had gotten bigger. That little magic ring Bilbo just happens to find, it wasn't just a handy tool for invisibility anymore. It had become something much, much darker. So what does that all mean? It means this one moment, Bilbo, all alone in the pitch black, playing a desperate game of riddles with Gollum and slipping a strange little gold ring into his pocket, this is the pivot on which the entire history of the Third Age of Middle-earth turns. Everything that happens in The Lord of the Rings starts right here in this cave. But, the ring isn't the only corrupting force in this story. As the company gets closer and closer to that mountain, they face an enemy that's way more subtle than any goblin or dragon. Greed itself. And Tolkien's description of Smaug's greed is just perfect. It's not about enjoying the wealth, it's mindless. It's joyless hoarding just for the sake of having it. The dragon sleeps on a pile of treasure he can't use and can't even appreciate. This isn't just a character flaw, it's a sickness. And this thing, it actually has a name, dragon sickness.
It's described like a spiritual disease, an obsession that just eats away at your reason and your kindness and replaces it with suspicion and paranoia. It's the exact thing the dwarves, and especially their leader, Thorin, are at risk of catching the second they lay eyes on all that gold.
And just in case you thought, oh, that's just a dwarf thing, Tolkien gives us this absolutely tragic, cautionary tale about the master of Laketown. He's given gold to rebuild the town and help his people. But the sickness gets him. He runs off with the treasure and dies, totally alone, starving in the wilderness while clutching his useless gold. It is a chilling, chilling warning.
So, as this dragon sickness starts to twist and poison the heart of Thorin Oakenshield, the stage is set for the story's real moral climax. And the one who steps up to be the hero is the one person you would least expect.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. Thorin, the king under the mountain, becomes absolutely mad with desire for one single gem, the Arkenstone. He locks himself inside the mountain and is willing to start a war, letting his allies, the very people who are now homeless because of his quest, starve and freeze outside. But Bilbo, the hobbit who just wants his armchair back, he sees the Arkenstone for what it really is, a bargaining chip, a way to stop a pointless, tragic war. This, right here, is Bilbo's defining moment. He doesn't swing a legendary sword or cast some powerful spell. He sneaks out of the mountain, knowing Thorin would probably kill him for it, and he gives away the single most valuable piece of the treasure. He sacrifices his reward, he risks his friendship, he risks his life, not for gold, but for peace. It is an act of pure, unbelievable moral courage. So after the huge battle and the tragic death of Thorin, the adventure is finally over. But the story isn't. The journey back home is where we really get to see the full scale of Bilbo's transformation. Seeing this map one last time, it just hits different, doesn't it? You can really feel the sheer distance he's covered. He crossed the Misty Mountains, he survived Mirkwood, he faced a dragon, and he lived through a war. The hobbit walking this road back home is not the same hobbit who was fussing over his handkerchiefs at the start. Not by a long shot. And this little poem, which Bilbo just kind of makes up on the spot as he sees his own hills in the distance, it captures everything. It's a song of both weariness and wonder, right? It acknowledges that the world's roads are endless, but also that there's this deep, comforting pull of finally coming home. So when you do the final math on the whole adventure, what's the score? Well, he gets home to find he's been declared legally dead and all his stuff is being auctioned off. So yeah, he lost his silver spoons, he definitely lost his respectable reputation. From then on, he was queer Mr. Baggins. But what he gained? It's just immeasurable. The friendship of elves and wizards, a true understanding of the massive world out there, and this deep, quiet appreciation for the simple things, like the sound of his own kettle, which now sounds more beautiful than ever, precisely because he chose to leave it behind. And all this leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We praise Bard for slaying Smaug, and we honor Thorin for his bravery in battle, but maybe, just maybe, the bravest act in this entire story was the very first one, the moment a small, comfortable hobbit heard a song about misty mountains and decided